Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the CWP YouTube channel. It's been a little while since we've been able to filter out some wonderful content to you folks. But as you know, April 30th, this Saturday, it is CWP Redemption from the Lord's Hill Academy, the Oasis Hub in Southampton, just off of Romsey Road. So with a show means we need a pre-show, which means I'm, of course, Aeron representing Wrestle Plug, and joining me, as always, is the inevitable and magical voice of CWP. That is Magic Martin Rowe. Welcome back, sir.
It's lovely to be back. We have got a stacked card to get through. So, and I've got to admit, you're going to have to be very excited about this because your knobs are slamming in the ring all the way through the show. So we know how much you love to see the knobs slamming in the ring. So let's bring this on with full force, full gusto.
Knobs everywhere, and as they've been mentioned, why not start with a pair of knobs? A #1 contendership for the tag team championships, which will also be defended on this show. Two teams making their debut, at least in terms of CWP, as teams, although we have seen all of these individuals before. The knobs pairing of Dirty Dave Dennis and Ebenezer the Geezer, Lord have mercy, versus the newly named Bromance, which of course consists of Cameron Anderson and Aeron Cruz. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's literally the dirty old boys versus the pretty young boys, isn't it? That's what we've got here. We've got grizzled, rough street thugs versus arguably one of the best looking and flippiest tag teams in the south of England. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's funny you say flippy, but these guys are very adept at wrestling. This is what I like about Aeron Cruz and Cameron Anderson, especially Cameron Anderson. By the way, Cameron Anderson, since we last saw him in the Dirty 24/7, the much vaunted Dirty 24/7 scramble match, he's been plying his trade, working with the likes of Rishi, Tate Mayfair's Lion Kid. He has been crafting quite the name for himself. And Aeron Cruz, of course, has been given opportunities and has earned opportunities in different places like KWE. He's just wrestled British legend Chris Kay. So these are two men who, although don't have an experience advantage over the knobs, already have big match experience coming into this. And that's why I'm very excited. In many ways, it is my wrestling friends versus my wrestling children in so much of a format. I'm very excited about this match. And what I like about this is that CWP has made it very clear tag team wrestling is back on the agenda and we need to take it much more seriously. And there is clearly a push to make it more evident on this card because of course, we have this #1 contenders match and a tag team title match. So it's great to see tag team wrestling back on the agenda.
Now, one of the things that's really going to interest me about this match is how the audience is going to react to both of the teams. Because the last time that we were with CWP, Juicy Crucy, Aeron Cruz, the Cruiserweight, he did not make a lot of friends out there. He was out there, he was gobby, he was, very abrasive, shall we say, and the audience, they did not like him. Now, of course, over the last couple of months, we've seen a lot going on with Dirty Dave Dennis, and he has upset a lot of people and to some extent is embracing his new appearance as one of the most hated villains in British wrestling at the moment. So, I mean, is one team going to turn to the dark side fully? Is one team going to embrace the light side fully? Or is it just going to be 4 people going out there, full aggression, and may the best team win?
That's what makes it a really interesting X Factor and one of the most important matches to watch from a fan's perspective, because for anyone watching this who's going to be attending, this is a very, very charismatic, but also very temperamental matchup between two teams that have a great deal of charisma, a great deal of attitude, but in very different styles. They have very different ethical values when it comes to professional wrestling. And I like the chances of the young upstarts a little bit, I have to say, but it's Dirty Dave Dennis that interests me the most because, as you said, we have seen interesting issues with Ryan Hendricks, unprofessional behavior somewhat to some people, although certainly not what I would say. And ultimately, is he going to be able to control himself well enough in a standard wrestling match? This is 1 fall to a finish. There is disqualifications in play. There are countouts in play. So how much is he going to be able to take liberties with the rules and how much are they going to be able to manipulate the referee? I'm not particularly excited for the referee and the prospect of him having to control this matchup. So the best of luck, sunshine, in this one. And of course, this will be backed up by a tag team title match. The winner of this match will face the winners of Good God Almighty, the IWE Tag Team Champions, who are challenging the current reigning and somewhat defending Tag Team Champions of CWP, Buff Nation. We all know about Roderick and Rambunctious, moving on to pastures greener, in his mind at least, moving on for a better quality of life. That's cool. And of course, Robbie Nitro was called upon the services of somebody who frankly is very adept and very capable in Buff Daddy. And Buff Nation have had an opportunity to wrestle, but they haven't had an opportunity to wrestle in CWP yet. And they haven't had an opportunity to defend the tag team titles. And some might say Buff Daddy shouldn't even be a tag team champ because he hasn't earned the belt, really. Let's be honest. There's been a bit of flexing here with management. But this is by far and away, with all due respect, the biggest challenge they have had to date in the form of Frankie T, the everyman, the journeyman of professional wrestling, and his wildly charismatic partner, Xander, who, of course, is also a part of the Demon Death Squad. So he's got the capability of going just a little bit deeper and a little bit darker if he's needed. What do you think about this? The fact that we have something very fresh, something new stepping up to the plate to challenge for tag team championships?
Now, when we had our chat at the end of last year, we were discussing how the future of CWP is going to look and how the company was kind of in a state of flux at the time. And one of the things that I discussed was the fact that I was of the opinion that our tag team champions are not undisputed tag team champions. At the moment, it's very much a Franken team. You've got the official champion of Robbie Nitro, and you've got Buff Daddy, who has had a championship in CWP in the past. He is a legitimate contender, but this is the opportunity for Buff Nation to cement their position as the undisputed CWP tag team champions. However, Buff Nation are going up against Good Goth Almighty, who are legitimate contenders. They have held their tag team championships in IWE for a long time. And in fact, at their last show a few months ago, which I had the pleasure of being at, I think you may have done a video watch along on the Wrestle Plug channel. They went up against a team that were pretty much unheard of in the East Anglian Killers, which means Good Goth Almighty can handle a tag team with a bit of beef to it. So you've got, Robbie Nitro, who is a legitimate heavyweight, and you've got Buff Daddy, who is a very, very strong competitor. He's smaller in stature, but he's solid. So, you've got the Goths going up against a team of heavy hitters, and they've proven in the past that they can handle themselves against heavy hitters. So could the legitimate tag team champions overthrow the pretender tag team champions? Join us to find out.
Yeah, I think they are a joke of a tag team in this respect. This frustrates me. I don't like airing my grievances too much on official CWP channels, but the reality is, and I've pulled you up on this on past comments as well, like the tag team division has been a joke up until now, and it's nice to see that that's been taken on board, and I appreciate the fact that CWP management have put in place the opportunity for people to take it more seriously. However, once again, like you've mentioned, this is a pretenders tag team champion. Like, I'm very frustrated by the fact Robbie Nitro, he may not have wrestled the cream of the crop, that's for sure, but he is legitimately one half of the tag team champions. Buff Daddy hasn't earned anything. He hasn't earned nothing. And their only tag team win that I've seen is over a rather dysfunctional Danny Disorder and Brandon Lee in ACW, which frankly doesn't mean much here on Southampton soil. So they've got a lot of answering to do. And frankly, if they fall at the first hurdle here and lose to Good Goth Almighty and lose their tag team champions, which by the way means that Good Goth Almighty will be carrying a lot of gold because Frankie T is also the fighting champion for Immortal Wrestling as well. And Xander certainly knows his way around a few belts as well. There's a legitimate argument here that pretty much from the get-go, they have been imposters in this division. So there's a lot of pressure on them as champions. The champions' advantage is dissipating slightly here because they have to prove something. They can't take an easy way out. They can't worm their way out of this or, politic their way to a certain result. They're going to have to earn it. And if they don't, massive question marks are going to be hanging over their heads. And like Martin has said, if you want to see it, well, you've got to come along and watch it. I mean, you'll be able to watch it after the fact, but there's nothing quite like live professional wrestling, and especially in the city of Southampton. And of course, all the details will be in the description of the podcast on YouTube, of course. And tickets are just £10 for adults, £5 for children. And of course, all proceeds will be going to the magical Dylan's Quest charity. So you'll not only be watching professional wrestling, but you'll be helping out terminally ill children and also helping out an incredible cause. And we are wonderfully excited about helping out our friends at Dylan's Quest, who we have for a number of years at this point. But that's just 2 of a 6-match card that, frankly, is going to excite a lot of people. Now, something else I remember Mr. Rowe mentioning was women's wrestling and the ability to see a women's champion, because, frankly, it has been a bit of a stagnant division. And, frankly, it's been left behind over the last few shows because of egos, because of, things like the impending Outcast interruptions that we had and things of that nature. However, women's wrestling will return at this show, and we will crown a brand new CWP Women's Champion. There is no question about it, because the belt is, of course, vacated as we speak, but 2 women will take up the challenge. We have the Outcast Pro Wrestling Women's Champion, Luna Trix, and we also have the somewhat seasoned veteran now, that is the Valkyrie Victoria Adams, who comes highly talented from the Midlands. Now, both of these women are very capable. Both of these women have a great deal of opportunity here to rewrite how we perceive women's wrestling, particularly in CWP. You must be excited for this one.
I genuinely am. They are 2 women who I've not personally seen in the ring, so I had to do my research. Lunatrix has been making big waves across the water over on the Isle of Wight, but also up and down the country. She's not just wrestling other women, she's doing intergender wrestling as well. She is a genuine hard hitter in women's wrestling. Victoria Adams really surprised me. I had to look her up on Facebook, do my research. When you put in Victoria Adams, pro wrestler, into Facebook, the first picture you see is her standing inside of a solid steel cage. And not just one of those little flexy chain link fence things. We're talking a classic 1980s blue bar cage, like something out of WWF Superstars on the Nintendo. So, this is a woman who has had battles. This is a woman who has gone through wars to be in this business. So to have these top 2 contenders going up against it to crown a brand new women's championship, not only does that mean we're going to get a great match, it also means that women's wrestling is back at CWP. And it's not just about who is crowned champion now, it's who's going to come in the future to attack that champion.
2 women with very different pedigrees. Lunatrix is by far and away the most dangerous women's wrestler in the country. And I'll tell you why. Because while a lot of women are combating and having incredible matches with women all the time, you've alluded to this, intergender wrestling. Lunatrix is trained and trains exclusively with men on the Isle of Wight. She has wrestled a number of people. In fact, just recently at CXW, she wrestled Rudy Root and Aeron Warnes in a triple threat match. So it's not a case of wrestling smaller men who may have the same stature as her. She's been in the ring with Max Carnage. She's been in the ring with Axel Chaos. She's been in the ring with the Virus, Kane Michael. Some of the most capable and some of the most dangerous men in our business. And a lot of the time she's come out on top. But not only that, she's also wrestled an incredible pedigree of women's wrestlers. And she will, by the time you watch this, have wrestled Darcy Stone as well for the Outcast Women's Championship. So it'll be interesting to see whether she is still the Outcast Women's Champion coming into this. But she has a pedigree. She has had that women's belt for over 2 years now. She's wrestled Dream Girl Ellie. She's wrestled Zan Phoenix. She's wrestled Amber Joe. She's wrestled a lot of very capable people. And she has a massive pedigree experience. And I think one of the things I really like about Lunatrix is the fact that she's not necessarily a wrestler's wrestler. She doesn't obsess over wrestling like a lot of people do. She's not cut from the wrestling cloth, but Victoria Adams is. Victoria Adams was brought into this business around wrestling. Her father is very influential in wrestling as well, as we all know. She has a pedigree for this, and she definitely has a mean streak. And I'm very excited about this because normally somebody has a clear-cut edge I think Luna Trix would be my personal favorite because I've seen her in action personally. I've shared locker rooms with Luna Trix, and she is one of the most devastating and capable women's wrestlers in the country. However, Victoria Adams is extremely dangerous and also is the master of the German suplex. I don't know if anyone's seen Victoria Adams deliver a German suplex, but it is a sight to behold, and she likes to keep locked in and normally deliver at least 3 consecutively. And that's the kind of damage that can bring you gold in this company. This is fantastic. Women's wrestling in CWP has always been one of the big identities of this company. And we can go back to the likes of Sky Smithson, Zan Phoenix, Aeron Angel, Mercedes Blaze. And we're talking about high-end world-class wrestlers. Sky Smithson is by far and away one of the best women's wrestlers in the world. So the fact that someone of her pedigree has led the charge of this division, it's great to see these women take up that charge too. And I have no doubt they will lead it forward for the many, many years to come that CWP will most likely be around for. I mean, that's enough for me. You know, I'd be very happy with that if I paid £10. That's an extremely impressive card of its own right, but there's still so much more. So much more. We've got tag team titles on the line. We've got a women's title that has been vacated that will be crowned, but we also have, oh baby, this is special. A singles contest, a mega matchup. This is arguably for me what you're going to stake your claim on. Just like last time around, we had Franco Varga versus Joel Redman, and this time around we have something that could truly match that in terms of the quality of in-ring wrestling. The Wolf of Broad Street, Alexander Roth versus the incredible Scottish, somewhat supernova, although we don't want to step on Noam Dar's toes, of course, but he is very impressive in his own right. ACW's own Scott Jones, one-on-one. This is an exhibition like no other. And surely, you got to think, Mr. Rowe, this is going to lend a lot of credibility as to who might be the next contender for the heavyweight title when the dust is settled on this show.
We've talked in the past about the fact that in every CWP show, there is one match which is world class. There is one match in there which stands out above the others because it's totally different to everything else. When we had Joel Redman, who was an NXT champion, against Franco Varga, who is currently facing the top indie talent in the world. I believe in the next week, he's going up against Matt Cardona, who is like a 7-time world champion at the moment. What we've got here are 2 top young cruiserweight technical wrestlers. The Wolf of Broad Street, Alexander Roth. We've had him in CWP many times in the past. If you go onto the CWP YouTube channel, you'll see him in tag team action against the wonderful South Coast Solent Bombers, who are sadly split up now, but they were one of the top powerhouse tag teams, which of course was the Mighty Oak and Chris Kay, who is still going solo at the moment. Alexander Roth, great young talent, very cool character. And then you got Scott Jones. You alluded to him being like Noam Dar. Physically, visually, very, very similar. He's a scrappy guy from, I believe, Glasgow in Scotland. He's going to come down and he's going to show us what technical wrestling is all about. CWP, when people talk about CWP, they often think about the multi-man scramble matches, the hardcore matches, tables matches. This is going to be pure wrestling excellence. And again, you know, we saw how many hits, how many views the last technical classic we had on YouTube. When we put up Joel Redman versus Franco Varga, like within days, it had thousands of views. This one is going to be the match that people are talking about because it's so different to every other match on the card. 2 great cruiserweight technical wrestlers showing what real British technical wrestling is all about.
I'm very lucky that I've had the pleasure of working, particularly with Scott Jones, a number of times. Scott Jones is a hybrid athlete as well. Very technically sound, trained by Joel Redman, by the way, so obviously has an incredible grip of wrestling fundamentals. But something about Scott Jones, which is an X factor, is that charisma, that attitude, that ability to also to fly. Alexander Roth is a 5-tool player, though. This is something special. We have seen him before, but we haven't seen him quite at this level. He has gone away and crafted himself on our British independent scene, and he has wrestled everybody. that you can imagine. And his wars with Damien alone are frankly some of the most enticing and also thrilling matches that are available for you to see on a free platform. You can check them out on YouTube. You put Alexander Roth in there is hours upon hours, reams of footage of him wrestling everyone, the who's who of professional wrestling. Frankly, it's criminal that he isn't already signed to something much more major. But that being said, Alexander Roth, wherever he goes, brings a level of quality and a degree of excellence that frankly not many people in our business can match up to. He's very, very capable. This is incredible, but this is also a massive opportunity for Scott Jones, because although he's already wrestled the likes of Eddie Ryan and Joel Redman in main events, this is something different. This is an X factor. This is a much more charismatic person in play. With all due respect to Joel Redman and Eddie Ryan, they're very straight-laced. They're very honest professional wrestlers. Alexander Roth is a different animal. He is a very charismatic, very dangerous individual, and he doesn't mind engaging in mind games and that sort. And you'd have to step in a ring with someone the likes of Damien, the demon at Hell's Gate. So for him to knock off Alexander Roth, Scott Jones, of course, I'm talking about, would be a massive feather in his cap, and would be a huge bone for intention of what he's going to do going forward. We've only seen Scott Jones the once when he made a very brief debut in the CWP Shot Caller Rumble at CWP Reborn. This is his opportunity to really stake a claim. And not only that, make a statement to CWP management that he is capable of going toe-to-toe with anybody. So this is his biggest opportunity to date, in my opinion. And I think he's going to have an opportunity to extremely thrive in this business. But is he going to be capable of knocking off one of the best wrestlers in Europe, Alexander Roth? That's going to take a monumental effort, but he is the individual that can do it out of everybody that is on this roster. It just keeps switching gears. And we have brand new gold being introduced at CWP. Now, many moons ago, we even spoke on a podcast. I know you were a big advocate for bringing back the middleweight title, possibly a cruiserweight title, but we have something a little bit different here, something a little bit more localized. The CWP County Championship will be unveiled, and a new champion, a first inaugural champion, will be crowned at CWP Redemption. 5 men in frankly, what is going to be a cluster mark. We know it's going to be, but 5 men are going to challenge for this belt. And right now, it's one fall to a finish. It's not even elimination. It's not a scramble. It's just one fall. So you're going to have your head on a swivel for this bad boy. The 5 men in question, of course, are the sensational Simon Durden of the Knobs. Yes, indeed, the Knobs get their fingers in the pies once again, don't they? The man that has the biggest of disorders, Danny Disorder. He is one angry son of a gun. And he is, of course, going to be looking to stake his claim and grab gold. We've seen him in ACW. He's another one that we saw. He eliminated Joel Redman from the Shot Caller Rumble. This is a wily, nasty piece of work. And then we have 3 men, all who ply their trade for Outcast Pro Wrestling. First of all, we have Rudy Root, who we've seen before, the retro dude who at the time was Outcast Pro Wrestling champion when he arrived at Reborn, and he challenged Eddie Kenway, admittedly in a fatal 4-way, so it wasn't a clean altercation for him. Unsuccessfully, it has to be said, but proved himself to be very capable in that match. And Rudy Root is, of course, somebody who is just so dedicated to his craft, an excellent professional wrestler. However, the true X factors for this are these 2 gentlemen who I'm very excited to see. First of all, we have Jackson Arrow, the leader of Outcast Pro Wrestling, multiple-time champion, not just on the Isle of Wight either, the inaugural CXW Heavyweight Champion as well. And he's looking to make a stamp in another company on the mainland and collect gold again. And he is in, frankly, incredible form. He just knocked off Blanco Loco of AEW at Outcast Retaliation show. At this time of speaking, just a week removed from this, Rudy Root and Jack Snarrow will have faced each other in a grudge match, a very vitriolic, a very violent affair. So 1 week removed from that, for these two to be thrown back into the fire in an entirely different territory is asking for something. But if there's something that might distract them, it will, of course, be, frankly, the unnerving presence of the virus, Kane Michael, who makes up our 5-way of doom. This is a ludicrously special but ludicrously dangerous talent as well. How do you get a handle on the 5 men that are standing in front of you? vying for the opportunity to become the first CWP county champion?
Well, firstly, I think it's really exciting that we've got a county championship. It's going to be kind of a wide net, to be honest. It's more of a Solent area championship because you've got a lot of great wrestling schools in the area. You've got the Quality Wrestling Academy, you've got the Rev Pro School, you've got the Outcast Pro Wrestling School over on the Isle of Wight. You've got some great wrestling that's going on down on the south coast, beyond the New Forest. So really, we're talking kind of like about a 30-mile radius of Southampton, really. But if this is open to just local talent, it's really showcasing just how much great talent there is in the south of England right now. And what we've got here is a mixture of characters, a lot of very big egos, and it's going to be fascinating to see what happens when you throw them in a 5-way match. It's, as you say, it's one fall to a finish, but of course, it's still a fatal 5-way, which really does mean anything goes. And when you've got gentlemen who have been of a violent disposition in the past, as you say, Jackson Arrow and Rudy Root, they will have just fought a week ago. They'll still be scarred up because full well there'll still be bad blood running through their veins. Sensational Simon Durden, a member of the Knobs, he's probably got a bit of a beef going with Danny Disorder. We saw in Independent Wrestling Elite, Danny Disorder used a low blow to get the win over his fellow Knob mate, Ebenezer the Geezer. So there's a little bit of tension there. And then you've got the Virus Kane Michael. If you haven't seen him, he looks like a Batman villain come to life. And when he comes through that curtain, there is a chill in the air. He is a character that you can't quite put your finger on. It's just, you feel it viscerally when he enters the room. He comes through and you just think, that guy ain't right. And it's like, Kane Michael, he's prepared to put his body on the line. And more importantly, he's prepared to put their bodies on the line. He is a violent individual, and he's the guy you've got to keep your eye on. Because if you turn your back, he will stab it.
Kane Michael will not hesitate to put you down. He looks at everybody like a rabid dog, and he is happy to put his foot on the back of your neck and crush your soul. And I should point out as well, Kane Michael has just picked up a victory in a triple threat match against Voodoo and Damien at CXW. Wow. That's how dangerous, that's how wily, that's how ferocious he is. Don't be fooled by the stature, because people look at him and think, well, I'm sure he can't cause that much damage. What is he, 5'10", 5'11"? Trust me, this is something beyond the archetypal cliched pit bull of professional wrestling. This is something that truly is monstrous, unhinged. There will be uncertainty, and there will be pain, and there will be panic. Of course, not in that order, if you know the Virus Kane Michael well enough. But there is something about him that is really unhinged. And also, he will have the advantage because at least two of these men he has gone to war with before, especially Jackson Arrow, who he fought for the championship at one point in Outcast Pro Wrestling. But let's not forget as well, the Virus Kane Michael will be a part of his own special match, the Anarchy Rules match, at Outcast Pro Wrestling show a week before this, and it'll be in a triple threat match against the Hunter Nero and Scrappy Jack, and that is going to be a stupidly violent affair. Is he going to be able to rebound? Is he going to be able to handle the physicality of that match and then come in and do what needs to be done to make history and win a title on the mainland, a title that has never, ever been seen before? And it will be unveiled before the match. It is a beautiful belt, I can assure you of that. And hopefully it will begin and grow a great pedigree in the future. And I can't think of 5 men, frankly, with a better opportunity to really help grow the pedigree of that belt. Every single one of these men, if they hold it, if they capture it, have the ability to really make it straight from the get-go a very important title in CWP. But there is only one truly very important belt in this company, one championship that everybody is willing to vie for. And ironically enough, the challenger for the CWP Heavyweight Championship knows a little something about gold himself. Eddie Kenway, 1,200 plus days, the Samoan weapon of mass destruction has been the CWP No Limits champion. He has quite literally destroyed everything in his path. And people are wondering why he's the man that will challenge the Prince of Mumbai, Rishi Ghosh. Well, frankly, Bobby Vegas, unfortunately, no longer is available and can commit to CWP shows going forward. and vacated his opportunity at the championship. And CWP management saw it fit to pick the only person, frankly, who was capable of taking on this task. In the main event, Rishi Ghosh will defend the CWP Heavyweight Championship against the CWP No Limits champion, Eddie Kenway. However, here's the kicker. Eddie Kenway must put his streak on the line and must also defend his CWP No Limits title. Title versus title, arguably the biggest and most important match that CWP has ever had in terms of the landscape of how it will look. How do you see this one panning out? And also, what do you think about the fact that Eddie Kenway is the man who has stepped in to fill the somewhat large shoes of the no longer with us Bobby Vegas?
I think he's the perfect number one contender because, firstly, this is a guy who has not just held a championship for longer than anyone in the UK. I believe he may be currently the longest holder of a championship anywhere in the world. You know, this is a guy who has held his No Limits championship longer than Roman Reigns has been Universal Champion. That's how long we're talking here. And this is a guy who's also already had victories over Bobby Vegas. So therefore, you know, he has proven himself to be that step above. So here we go. You've got the Samoan weapon of mass destruction, the literal immovable object going against the irresistible force of the Prince of Mumbai, the wiliest wrestler in the game today. They talk about people who have all the tricks in the book. The Prince of Mumbai, he wrote the book. He is now on the second printing of the book. This is a guy who works day in and day out down at the Quality Wrestling Academy down in Havant. He is training the next generation of British wrestlers, but also he has wrestled everyone in the current stable of British wrestling. Over the past few months, you've seen him go against, you know, classic stalwarts from the FWA era. He's wrestled against Doug Williams. He has put his championship from multiple companies on the line. The only belt he has not defended in a long, long time is the CWP Championship. So finally, the Prince of Mumbai returns to Southampton, and he has got a monumental task, literally and physically. Here we go. The Prince of Mumbai, a very dastardly character, a man who knows all the tricks, all the dodgy dealing, all the ways to work the referee, all the ways to bend those rules. And then you've got a guy like Eddie Kenway, who has been a villain, but he comes out and he's an enforcing presence. And the crowd just can't help but be attracted to the guy because he looks like wrestling. He comes out, he's got the hair, he's got the physique. He holds that championship like no one I've ever seen. It's like that No Limits championship was made for him. And for him to be able to have two championships, one on each of his boulder shoulders, I think by the end of the night, we're going to have ourselves a brand new CWP champion. That's my prediction.
It's a bold prediction. The thing that worries me about this, Eddie Kenway is the most capable weapon of destruction I know. I've trained with the man. I've worked alongside the man. We've traveled up and down the road quite a bit as well. The same with Rishi Ghosh, somebody who actually trained me and gave me my first break in the business. But one thing that does stand out to me here is this is a one fall to a finish wrestling match. This is not a no limits title match. No, even though the no limits title is on the line, the CWP Heavyweight Championship has been given the advantage in terms of the rules for this matchup, which means that there will be disqualifications and countouts. Eddie Kenway is not going to be able to flex his level of destruction. He's going to have to, I mean, obviously he's capable. He's big enough. He can put anyone down without weapons, but there's no real extension of the rules here. You're not going to be able to push it too far, particularly if we have the referee in place that we think we will. So the fact of the matter is, this is huge. This is a big deal because if Rishi Ghosh wins, he cements himself as arguably the most decorated and most glorious wrestler that our area, at least, if not Britain, has ever seen. Whereas Eddie Kenway has a chance to completely halt all of his production, all of his character. He could completely derail the journey of Rishi Ghosh here with one fell swoop. If he hits a Samoan drop, if he puts that Coquina clutch in, then there is going to be a serious issue. He could potentially choke out Rishi Ghosh. And let's be fair, Rishi Ghosh has been somewhat indestructible, somewhat invincible. Like when you say wily, that is not an understatement. This man can quite literally escape anything. He's the only man, I believe, that would come out of a Saw movie without a scratch. He is so wily, so dangerous. He is the ultimate, consummate veteran. And in many ways, he's as unprofessional as he is professional in his behavior in the ring. And that could be the telling point. But let's not forget, both men have an astonishing amount of experience. Eddie Kenway has well over a decade of experience in this business. He is not exactly the everyman. He's not exactly a spring chicken in regards to his time in the business. But this is a big deal. And when you look back at the 6 matches we've just spoken about, £10 for an adult, £5 for a child, knowing that that money will be also going to charity, that's pretty impressive value.
Now, whenever we have these chats, I always say the same thing. And I'm going to say it again. I'm not going to lie. When you come to see grassroots British wrestling, you are seeing legends of the past, superstars of the present, and also superstars of the future. You're seeing people who this week are in the main event, but next week could be on television. Looking at that showcase match that we were talking about earlier, Scott Jones versus Alexander Roth. These are the kind of guys with the technical skills, the looks, the youth, that if you don't see them at CWP, give it 6 months, they could be on NXT UK. And NXT UK are still signing up the best talent in the UK. And in fact, talents from NXT UK are moving over to NXT USA. We've just seen Pretty Deadly make the transition. We've just seen Nathan Fraser make the transition, which means that there is always that moving. There's that ladder of success in British wrestling. And at the moment, the place to aim for is always going to be WWE. But the breeding ground for great British wrestling is grassroots, local, independent wrestling. If you've never been to a local wrestling show before, come on down, give it a try, because you will never get closer to the wrestling ring for this price of a ticket. You'll be able to hear every bump, every thump, every chop. You'll be able to smell them as they come down to ringside. You'll be able to have high fives and signatures. It's the kind of experience that you don't get when you go to see WWE at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. This is a smaller, intimate environment, but it's much more real. It's much more visceral. You can feel it. You're not just in the audience, you are part of the show.
Yeah, and none more so than at CWP, one of the most vibrant and exciting audiences. We're expecting a packed house. Tickets will be available on the door, but they will also, if you're watching this and you're thinking, I just want to make sure, I just want to pre-order my ticket, there is an email that you can do that with, and it's charitywrestling@yahoo.com. If you send an email, an individual will get back to you, a member of our wonderful admin team, and they will, of course, place a ticket on hold for you and make sure that your ticket is available on the door. But don't worry, we will have excess tickets available on the door. We've already sold very well for this event, and we hope that it will sell even more. There's been a great job done by the entire team. We have to give a shout out to everybody involved, people who have posted, people who have worked hard on social media, everything that has gone on here. It is a team effort, it is a family, and we do indeed ask you to help us so that we can help others with the extraordinary Dylan's Quest. We also have to point out some of our sponsors as well. Big shout out to Aeron Safeguarding, who will be helping provide security and safeguarding the event. And also the Wing Clothing brand will be back, which of course is headed up by that dastardly man himself, Ebenezer the Geezer, and he'll be at the merchandise table looking to make quite the noise and quite the scene and potentially brag about the fact that he could be in the near future a tag team champion if he has his own way. And I have no doubt that he will want to have his own way, because knobs always want to have their own way. And I look forward to that. And I look forward to all these matches, frankly. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you're thinking the Oasis Hub, Lord's Hill Academy, slightly outside the city centre, it has to be said. However, free parking on the day, ample parking as well. So if you are thinking of driving to the event, excellent. There is good public access links. buses, park and ride, that kind of thing. It is all available. And if you're thinking, I'd like to go, but I'm not entirely sure about details, do not hesitate to contact Charity Wrestling Promotions, across all of the social media. It's at CWP Charity on the social media platforms. You can send them a message, and of course, they will get in contact with you and let you know what the best way is, so we can happily help you get to the venue. Not only donate some great money to charity, but also have a fantastic day. There's going to be a lot of merchandise available, snacks, drinks, all kinds of stuff going on. It really is a truly packed wrestling event. And of course, doors open at 6:30. Show starts at a prompt 7 p.m. April 30th. Make sure that you join us. Magic Martin Rowe, thank you very much for joining me for the CWP Redemption pre-show.
It's great to be back, and I'll see you all in the ring. It's going to be a night to remember, a night of champions.
Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you for the review, no doubt, with the handsome man to the side of me right now. But until then, we'll catch you very soon for more content on the CWP YouTube channel.